Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. Today's video I want to talk about, obviously, the same thing that we've been talking about and just go over the latest, which is the takeover of Manchester United, what it means, what's out there, and where we're headed as we move into, I think, about 2 days away from the soft deadline for bids to be in to purchase the club. Who's still involved, who's not involved, and where are things going? It's a very confusing time. So let's get right into it. And I'm trying to present here, the information that I have in, a format of what's understood, what's out there, as well as, what's kind of realistic and viable. The latest on Qatar, obviously I don't have inside information on anything really to do with Qatar, except that it wasn't going to be QSI. And initially the reports it wasn't going to be QIA. A lot of things have changed in the reporting on this. The original report about Qatar has continued to state that it's going to be a group of private investors with a separate investment vehicle or fund set up to purchase the club, and that way it gets around UEFA and they're confident there's not going to be issues with it and all of that. You get different reportings based on who's reporting it. Obviously from Qatar's side, they continue to brief and report a lot of confidence in the deal. At the same time, you're getting a lot of conflicting reports in terms of the price. And will they overpay? Will they not? Some say they tend to be very shrewd on their biddings and on their negotiations and tough people to deal with in that regard. And that's not an insult. That's a compliment. That they're not going to just overpay for the sake of it, which some people seem to think they will. It's sort of starting based on different reports coming out from Sky, from Jamie Jackson and others. It sounds like they're looking to bid in the range of $4.5 billion, and they don't expect UEFA to be a concern. Obviously, they're the most public name right now. They're the ones who are expressing a lot of confidence. So, from an outside perspective, at the moment, you would have to say it appears they're more likely than anybody else. But that's just obviously what's on the surface in terms of taking over the club. It would be a private investment group, likely. There continue to be a lot of reports that rule out QIA, but nobody really knows here, frankly, yet. And I think that they keep saying that they're working on it till Friday for getting the bid in. And in terms of working on it, I imagine what that means is how do you set it up legally, structurally, so that you are able to provide documentation of what kind of investment vehicle is being used to buy Manchester United, so that you can prove the separation from PSG. So that seems to be what they're obviously working on. And come Friday, when and if they do move forward with their bid as expected, then maybe we'll get to know exactly more of the details on how much, what. We'll see. Given how much info's out there, I would be surprised if they didn't brief their bids and the exact nature of it to journalists at the time. So that's what's sort of expected from Qatar, who are obviously the most public. With regards to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, there has not been much new news with regards to him since the last thing that came out in the last video where I explained the point of financing and things like that, and how that all works. Interestingly, there's a couple funny things, which is that there was, it seems like some travels, both Qatar, potentially the actual Emir of Qatar, as well as Sir Jim Ratcliffe, in relation to Florida. But it's a little hard to confirm, obviously, who or what or where, or if there's any connection between that and the actual purchase situation itself. But both have had private planes moving between Florida and Europe, as well as England for Jim Ratcliffe. But otherwise, there's not much new here. He remains in the process. He remains expected to place a bid. There's some conflicting information in terms of, again, how much he would be looking to bid as well. But what's kind of interesting here is what seems to be coming out across the board among these bidders or among news reports is there's not going to be a £6 billion bid for Manchester United. It probably won't even be a £5 billion bid for Manchester United. It seems like the prices that most of them are looking at is somewhere in the range of $4.5 billion. One report that did come out, I don't know the accuracy of this, when it comes to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, was that it would be somewhere around $3.5 billion plus debt. That might put it close to $4.5 billion as well. And realize that, yeah, it's confusing. It's confusing, but I think a lot of it is speculative. And until the bids are actually in, nobody knows exactly how much they're going to bid, or that anybody is going to bid. The $4.5 billion, but all bids are expected, once again, to cover as well the debt of the club. There was early reports that came out, just to remind everybody, early reports that came out about this whole thing said that the Glazers were looking to net out of it something like $3.5 billion themselves. So $4.5 billion might do it if it's taking away debt and things like that. It might actually get rid of that amount of money. It might give them exactly what they want. So these bids might be sufficient, even though there's also been reports coming out that maybe they won't accept it if it's only $4.5 billion. Maybe they'll just look for partial investment if it's less than that. The scenario of the Glazers being able to buy out their siblings and maintain control of the club is still the least likely scenario, but we'll touch on that in a moment. So the $4.5 billion, 4 to 4.5, seems to still be the rumored numbers, even for Qatar and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. So moving on forward from that, then there's the unknown bidders. And the unknown bidders could come from Saudi as well as the U.S., or are likely to come from the U.S. And perhaps Saudi. There's a report in the Times today who've been up to date on most everything that said there will be big players from the United States for Manchester United, even if they have yet to show their hand. There's been previous reports from Ducker and others that, once again, the U.S. parties that are bidding are staying silent at the moment. I don't know. Nobody really knows if after the 17th their names are going to come out. We don't know how quickly they're going to narrow it down to the finalists, and if they're going to tell us. We don't know if after the bid then they can come public, and maybe they will have to at that point come public and say, yes, we're interested in buying Manchester United. But there are other parties and other bidders. I don't think there's a ton, but I think there's two, maybe three other ones involved here. And in terms of price, I don't think any of them are going to be on the first offer, any of these parties blowing it out of the water and offering $6 billion or $5.5 billion or anything like that. I think we're looking at, that they're all going to be in the range of $4 to $4.5 billion initially, and then we'll see. We don't know how it's going to be competitive after that. One of the things that's been discussed is the Glazers holding on to the club as a potential option and buying out their siblings and things. As far as I know, that is extremely unlikely, and for the same reasons that we've discussed before. If they could have gotten partial investment before, they wouldn't have had to go through this whole process with the Rain Group. It seems like mostly it's a tactic to get some more money, make sure they get what they need out of the club. Not what they need, because they don't need it. What they want out of the club in terms of a payday. Again, it's like I can understand being nervous. I feel nervous about it simply because you just want it to. You don't want to believe that anything could go wrong, and but you kind of feel like with the Glazers you can never bet on something going the way that is expected. But they have employed the Rain Group. There are offers and there are viable buyers. I mean, let's look at it that way. There's viable buyers involved with Rain Group for the purchase of Manchester United, and as such, they shouldn't back out from all of this, or they wouldn't have employed the Rain Group in the first place if they could have gotten minor investment from anyone, around the world. And it was actually workable. They would have done that before. So it's really unexpected, and especially the avenue of buying out their siblings is apparently extremely unlikely for multiple reasons. It was something explored with Apollo before that they already declined to do way back then. I don't see why that would change now. It also doesn't do much for them. Who's going to give them that money? $3 billion to buy out their siblings that they have in debt? I don't understand how that works. Who's going to give them that money, and what guarantee of return are they going to get on that? Especially given the fact that the siblings have already given all the decision-making power to Joel and Avram. If they've driven the club down to where it is now, nobody's going to see the upside for the club of buying out the siblings. How is that going to make the club more financially viable? It's not. So it seems an extremely unlikely scenario. And then the final thing I want to touch on in this video today, keeping it brief because I don't want to just talk and talk and talk, and that's why I haven't made videos every day. I don't want to talk and talk without having something to actually discuss. I like to cover the news. I like to go over those things. I don't like to just give my opinions all day. With terms from Marcel Sabitzer, there's been a report that it would be price estimated about 20 million euros in summer, and I believe that's accurate. And as I mentioned in a prior video, it's something United are looking at. They were hoping to maybe get an option in the range of that price. They didn't have time for it. Very much interested in it. And again, I want to explain something with regards to FFP. If you sold Scott McTominay for 20 million euros and you bought Marcel Sabitzer for 20 million euros, you're actually coming about way ahead. The wages are going to be similar. For McTominay, you're getting 20 million on the books for FFP now. For Sabitzer, it's only costing you 4 million a year. So you're getting 16 million in FFP space, which is the equivalent of an 80 million euros purchase. Sales are huge, and buying someone like Sabitzer to replace someone like McTominay with the way that the finances are set up would be massive help for freeing up further funds. Even though it's only 20 million in and out, it has a huge effect on FFP and is a big way to allow the club to spend more money in the summer from an FFP perspective and do what they need. I think they're very interested in doing something like that. We'll see how the performances go over the next few months. He's going to play a lot, not against Barcelona. Obviously, he is banned from the yellow card, from yellow card accumulation. So, but we'll see how the performances are over the next few months. I thought he had a pretty decent game. I thought he and Fred were a lot better against Leeds. I thought they both had good games. I thought he had a decent game against Leeds. He obviously shows he can play in this league, but we want to see more of it. But as a depth option, it's a clear upgrade on McTominay for me in the position. Clear upgrade. And I think that's, for depth, for improving our depth, great signing at that kind of price point. So it's one I hope United do. Okay? Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. I will update. And if there's news and as things come out in the next day or two as we get to the deadline, I will do videos and I will update things. Just I'm waiting like most everybody else to see what happens with the bids, what comes in. I don't think anybody can say for sure at this point, but I'm just waiting. I'm waiting. I don't know. I'm waiting to see the follow through on all the reports that are out there. I'm waiting for new news, which there hasn't been that much of, just a lot of repeats of things. So like everybody else, I'm waiting, and I don't know that anybody's going to hear the details until Rain decide to actually put them out now following the 17th deadline. Okay? Again, thank you for watching. I'll see you later.